today's program, we are going to be talking to the following people. First of all, I'm very excited. At 7:30, we'll be talking to the Oklahoma Governor, Kevin Stitt. He has introduced a bill for sports gambling, but there is controversy around it, and a lot of people don't think it will come in to Oklahoma because of his relationship or the fact that he did not consult the Native American tribes who control gambling in Oklahoma prior to proposing the bill. So we'll be talking to him about that. At 7:45, for those listening in on the Texas Panhandle and in the Amarillo area, it will be the Sod Poodles president, general manager, Tony Enzer. The Amarillo Sod Poodles are now the Minor League Baseball Organization of the Year. You heard me. The Minor League Baseball Organization of the Year, according to Minor League Baseball, which is sort of like the commissioner's office of Minor League Baseball, if you will. But they recently were given that designation. They increased, for instance, their merchandising revenues 12%, that sort of thing. But, how does one in today's day and age market a minor league baseball team? And is there too much emphasis on the dollar hot dogs, let's say? Now, I'm not sure that's a Sod Poodles thing, but they have calf fries, for instance. Well, here's the question. I'm a veteran baseball play-by-play broadcaster, and I think it does need to be said. As wonderful it is, as the front office of the Amarillo Soddies have been donating 200 hours of their time to volunteer for various organizations around Amarillo and such. I mentioned this before on the show last week. The World Series gets about 10% of the ratings that the Super Bowl does. If that. Super Bowl gets about 100 million viewers. World Series this year was a low rating, one of the lowest ever. In fact, I think it was the lowest rating ever, 8 million. Now, you compare that to, let's say, back in the day when the Royals and Phillies in 1980 played Game 6 of the World Series in front of 54 million television viewers. And I know we have more options and, sports now, and the World Series is played later, and, it's a longer playoff, so maybe you lose track. These are all things, but it seems like baseball is not as popular as it used to be, yet here the Sod Poodles are drawing very well and are doing quite well. Is there too much emphasis then on calf fries and not enough emphasis on a ball game? I'll be asking the president of the Saudis that later on in the hour, in the 7:45 mark of the program. But the big news around Guymon came out yesterday, and it is that in January we will have a special ballot initiative to find out if, Memorial Hospital, they owe Medicare more than $860,000. They're in debt, and they want better infrastructure in Memorial Hospital. They don't want to be using leeches, guys. They need better equipment, this sort of thing. So a ballot initiative coming out in Texas County, here in the Panhandle, January 9th, 2024, and right now there's an existing 4/5 of that's not right, 0.45, 45% of a cent county tax on sales that exists. Hospital wants to increase it to 1 whole cent. And if approved, it'll take effect on April Fool's Day of next year. And it will have a sunset provision that will be slated to end in 20 years. But the idea is, hey, the hospital, not only will the infrastructure improve, but we're going to get out of debt. There's one problem. There are a lot of people in Texas County, and I was talking to yesterday Mariah Stuchik about this, or Stuclick, I'm sorry, Mariah Stuclick. I'll get her name right. And she really, felt like there was a feeling in the community of, hey, Memorial Hospital, you got yourself into this debt. You get yourself out. Now, whether or not that means, higher cost medical procedures, if that was the case, and healthcare takes care of that, all that does it, depends on the plan you have. But yeah, there is that feeling around, and that is the big thing. Are you willing to have your sales tax increased by about a half cent overall, a little bit more, to bail the hospital out? You say, seems like a worthy cause, and then there's, of course, the natural distrust of doctors, and, well, when you have that coming out with a debt, well, you can see where the populace is here. Don't give me your bills. On the other hand, you don't, as I said, want to be having leeches and reused tongue depressors and such in the hospital. I'm obviously being hyperbolic here, but yeah, you want the most modern equipment, all this sort of stuff. I know, the days of sawbones are over. It's not cute. That's not going on over there. But you get the idea. Do you want the most modern medical equipment, the most modern medical science and such at the local hospital? Will this fund? So there'll be a lot of debate coming up now about whether, what's going to happen here and all this. It's going to come up, like I said, in a little bit less than 2 months, January 9th, 2024. You can vote. Okay, increase your sales tax about half a cent, 0.55. It's currently 0.45. Do it for 20 years to help out the hospital, who, like I said, over $800,000 in debt. So we'll see what goes on there with the hospital vote. That's been the big news in Guymon here coming up, and it's going to be certainly something we'll be talking about here on the program. The 5-state sunrise with me, Marky Billson. And just something we'll be discussing a lot more. As I said, at the bottom of the hour, we'll be talking to the governor. Is sports gambling finally going to come to Oklahoma, or is the bickering of politicians going to stop it? And then some fun talk at 7:45 with the Amarillo Sod Poodles. Going around here before we take our first break. Well, we're getting close to that, so I think we're going to take a break coming up. I want to remind everyone right now, it is just 35 degrees outside. It's going to be getting to a high today in Guymon of, about 65 degrees. It's going to be another one of those, for those listening in the Texas Panhandle, stars up in the skies days where you'll see miles and miles of Texas. Yes, another I said yesterday it would be clear, and it was cloudy. Well, this is why I hate giving weather. I mean, but no, it's according to the weather here on the computer, there will not be a cloud in the sky. You'll be able to see miles of Texas or Oklahoma or Kansas or Colorado or New Mexico, as the state case may be, and the low will get to 34 degrees overnight, 35 right now. When we come back, a few other thoughts on what's going on. Hey, Kansas, did you get the last laugh yesterday? Did you get the last laugh on Charlie Finley? Yeah, you heard me. I'll talk about that when we return here on KGYN.
Ag weather from the Mid-America Ag Network. I'm Andy Hoosier. Good Friday to you, making it to the end of the week and only 1 week away to Thanksgiving. It's hard to believe how time continues to fly on by, especially with the warmer temperatures not really getting you into the holiday season as of yet, although we are seeing things slowly begin to cool off, only going to right around those mid-50-degree ranges for the day-to-day after a couple of really warm days at almost 70 degrees overall. Still relatively clear and sunny, though, which is making it difficult for some of that winter wheat crop planting, as the topsoil moisture shortages continue to expand around the Mid-America region. That's according to U.S. Department of Agriculture meteorologist Brad Rippey.
The weather pattern of this past week and its impacts on topsoil moisture for the period ending November 5th.
We are seeing a pattern where it's slightly drier over the last week, so our very short to short rating for topsoil moisture nationally has increased to 40%. That is up from last week's 39%. At the same time, topsoil moisture rated surplus currently stands at 5% of the country. That is down from 7% last week.
Meteorologist Brad Rippey says USDA's latest topsoil moisture condition report includes notes on wet conditions in a small part of the nation.
Most of the remaining wetness is focused from the lower Great Lakes region into New England. It's been an area that's been pretty wet of late. We still see numbers coming in as high as 63% surplus in Vermont. And we also, as you move westward into the eastern Corn Belt, 25% surplus in Michigan. But that is down from last week's 48%. So it is drying out there.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
It is still relatively dry here in the Mid-America region without a whole lot of moisture as of late, and things are finally starting to cool off as well with overnight temperatures tonight going right around those low 40s, maybe upper 30s overall with that cold front moving from the south overall. Over the weekend, we're going to see things hovering right around that 60-degree range for Saturday and Sunday. Ag weather from the Mid-America Ag Network.
Attention Wichita and surrounding communities. Have you been told you've got too much negative equity in your trade to make a deal? Did you pay over MSRP and are now stuck with a huge loss? You're not alone. At Midwest Kia, we never price over sticker. Come to Midwest Kia's Great Thanksgiving Negative Equity Elimination Event. That's right, come see us at Midwest Kia, and if we can't put a reasonable deal together because of your negative equity, you'll be entered into a chance to win up to $10,000 of Midwest Kia's Negative Equity Elimination money. That's up to $10,000 more for your trade to help you get back into equity towards the purchase of any vehicle on our lot. At Midwest Kia, we offer a simple, transparent, and fast car buying experience. Come to Midwest Kia and see why people are singing.
We want to see ya in a Midwest Kia.
Winner picked on November 30th, 2023. Need not be present to win. Winner receives up to $10,000 applied against negative equity of trade-in on credit purchase of vehicle from Midwest Kia. Negative equity is the difference between trade-in, ACV, and payoff. See dealer for details. No purchase necessary.
See that cute little dog in the pet store window? Chances are it came from a puppy mill. A breeding facility that forces caged, neglected, and often sick dogs to churn out puppy after puppy to be sold for profit. Meanwhile, millions of wonderful, healthy pets end up in animal shelters. This leads to the killing of more than 9,000 by the end of today. But with one simple choice, you can help. Just by deciding to adopt instead of purchase your next pet. Animal shelters are full of amazing pets looking for a home. When you adopt your new best friend, not only are you saving a life, you're taking a stand against puppy mills. When your friends see the smart choice and impact you've made, they adopt their next pet and share with 5 of their friends, who share with 5 more. Before long, thousands get involved. Pet stores stop selling dogs from puppy mills, and even more lives are saved. And with your help, we can save them all. Visit bestfriends.org/puppymills to learn more.
That breaks your heart, doesn't it, with the puppy mills PSA right there. Oh boy, but my mother was always huge. I mean, animal-loving family I come from, and my mother always big on animal shelters and volunteering for them and such, and get your pets from the shelter and so on and so forth. So that's the PSA right there, and of course before that the Midwest Kia ad, which I am a big fan of. I think it's well produced. And as I mentioned before, I did a whole bit on this earlier and all this. That's a much better ad than some of the we're going to see in Kia ads I've heard in the southeastern United States, where, car ads are just, you think we're out here in Oklahoma, the Wild West. No, car ads in the southeast United States or, all this sort of stuff where you have little girls going on there, see you in a Kia, he's our daddy, this sort of thing. And you're like, what in the world? Gotta buy a car from there. Get a horse. Let's go pull a cart. I mean, it's almost to that degree, as I said. And with this demeanor, I should tell you that I'll be talking in a few minutes to Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma. Anyway, I wanted to mention this because, we're in the 5-state region, and I know that in Kansas, a lot of Kansas City sports fans. Of course, we're the home of the Chiefs here on the five-state Big Talker, KGYN, and you can listen to their Monday night football game, a rematch against the Philadelphia Eagles of the Super Bowl this upcoming Monday night, where it'll be a 6:30 broadcast time for the beginning of the ball game. Tomorrow, by the way, you'll be able to hear two football games on these here airwaves. Beginning at 10:30 a.m., Touchdown Radio will give you the Big E football game between Michigan and Maryland. Michigan with no coach. Well, they have an assistant taking over, and they run the ball a lot under his tutelage. But yes, Jim Harbaugh suspended. Can't be stealing those signs. And they'll be taking on the Maryland Terrapins, who are somewhat saying we like all the money but not all the losses that have occurred to us since joining the Big Ten. And then Cowboys fans at 3 p.m. will be on the Cowboys Network for the 23rd-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. They'll take on lowly Houston here on the airwaves AM 1210 of KGYN, the five-state Big Talker. I am Marky Billson. This is the five-state Sunrise, and as I said, that includes Kansas. And I'm saddened to see where Major League Baseball, two things here, and I want to lead into the governor with this. One was that the Oakland A's were going to, it looks like they're going to move to Las Vegas in 2028, which means that that'll be the smallest market in the major leagues. And again, one of my things of baseball, it'll be like, oh, one of the things of baseball, you're touring, here are a couple of A's tickets the casinos will give away. And you've seen this in a lot of areas where you have a lot of transplanted citizenry, like Las Vegas, Florida, Tampa, that area, certainly Los Angeles. We've seen a lot of this, where the visiting team, their fans outdraw the home team for many games. And I just get the idea this is what's going to happen down in Las Vegas. As I said, it's the smallest market. But it's also, in some ways, I'm totally opposed to franchises moving. I just don't, yes, I know it's a business and all that, but just like you'd be opposed to the factory shutting down in your town and all this. Well, labor and it's cheaper overseas and all that. But what does that do to Mr. and Mrs. American citizen over here? Just from a moral standpoint, let's say. I don't like the mill shutting down in the mill town. I don't like, you get what I'm trying to say here. And I think this is somewhat the case with Oakland. Of course, the A's actually played in the Coliseum longer than they played in Shibe Park back when they were in Philly. They will be the first team to move 3 times in Major League Baseball, joining ranks of, say, the Kings franchise in the NBA. They've moved 3 times, Rochester, Cincinnati. Kansas City, I guess you could argue, 4 times. Omaha, they played some games before settling in the 80s in Sacramento. But the situation comes out where, if you know the history of the A's, they were in Kansas City once. Didn't have a winning record there, made a lot of bad deals with the Yankees many years ago. But Charlie Finley, the owner of the A's in the 60s, who moved the team from Kansas City, our region, to Oakland, and later said it was the worst move he ever made. This shows you a little bit about just how slimy sports franchise relocation is. Where they originally, Kansas City, they wanted to have Major League Baseball, obviously, and they said, well, why don't we have a domed multi-purpose stadium, which was very much in vogue, the multi-purpose stadium, the Houston Astrodome, think of that, that was very much in vogue in the time, or one big multi-purpose stadium. Charlie Finley, the owner of the A's, I don't like that. Finley never really liked Kansas City, by the way, for whatever reason. He was from northwest Indiana. He was an insurance guy and very flamboyant owner. He basically then said, I don't want to do that. Why don't we build a ballpark for both teams, the football and the baseball? And they voted on it in 1967. Yeah, you got it. And then after 1967, he decided to move the A's to the then brand spanking new and now supposedly obsolete Oakland Coliseum. I've been to the Coliseum. I mean, it's got a lot of restaurants. I got a stop on the subway there, hotels around it. It's right by the airport. I mean, I know it's an older ballpark, but there is a lot going on around there. I'll give you that. And I just, the way that this was, it's just so scuzzy. I mean, you've got a franchise here in the A's. Oakland is struggling as a community. And instead of, trying to say, okay, we're part of the landscape, we understand we bring people together in a community that needs people brought together, we get more money on broadcast revenues. We're in a larger area and all that. No, we're going to play the stadium game. And I know, Oakland, you're going through some tough times here, but you better build us a new stadium. Sure, we're a private enterprise. I just don't think it's right. And that, that they don't meet with such demands, that they move away in the situation. And that's, way back in 1967 in the quote-unquote Kansas region. Yeah, Kansas City. That's how we got 2 ballparks in Kansas City. It was originally for the A's. And what did he do? He, Finley said, oh, that's nice. Yeah, no, I'm moving to Kansas City. Thanks for building the ballparks for me here, Kansas City, or going to that, but I'll come over here. And eventually, I think the, what's now is Kauffman Stadium, was Royal Stadium initially, was built in 73. I think it was completed then, 73 or 72, early 70s. I think Arrowhead Stadium, the first year was 72. And early 70s. And, that could have been theirs. But no. And now what happens? 50 years later, it's time to go to Las Vegas, smaller market. Good luck in attracting a loyal fan base there. Going into also, I saw, and you may have heard it in America this morning, Atlanta's going to get the 2025 All-Star game. And I noticed that because, and I wanted to say this because I want to ask the governor and a few about unions, and that's why I wanted to make this statement. A lot of people are critical of Rob Manfred for moving the All-Star game a couple of years ago out of Atlanta in 2021, I think it was, from Atlanta to Denver. And it was based on, belief of voter fraud in elections, or they didn't, it was just a political reason. However, I thought that the reason why Manfred acted was the initial, shall we say, protest of the game by Tony Clark, who's the head of the Major League Baseball Players Union. He was the first one to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't have this game in Atlanta, and it then transformed into where you would have the game played in Denver eventually, and Manfred signed off on it. I wonder, though, as criticized as Manfred was, and I do not think he is a good commissioner at all, but were his hands tied? Because you can see that if a union says, you know what, we don't really like this ball game being played in Atlanta, let's move it, that they could actually have their players boycott the game. And that was something that never was really discussed when the game was moved, the All-Star game 2 years ago, from Atlanta to Colorado. But it's also says to me, and I truly believe this, that not so much the commissioner's office, but the Baseball Players Union controls Major League Baseball. And that's a question we're going to ask about what is the role of unions? Because certainly Governor Kevin Stitt here in Oklahoma has gone back and forth with teachers' unions. And what is the role of unions in 2023? I'm looking forward to asking the governor that. And you will hear that right after this.
Ag News from the Mid-America Ag Network. I'm Andy Hoosier. Here's your latest report.
Well, USDA makes 2 surprise changes to the corn yield and to the demand side of the latest crop production report. And not only that, but we've got some problems over in the cattle department. If you checked the markets last week, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Big declines, $5, $10 a hundred on cash markets across the United States. Went down the cattle market because of information on how much beef is going to be produced in 2024. In the meantime, let's get serious about a couple of things. 2 surprise changes to the corn figure. Corn yield, 174.9 now, according to USDA. Up almost 2 bushels an acre, 1.9. Soybean yield, 49.9, up 0.3 of a bushel. Cotton, up 16 pounds per acre. And so consequently, they kind of left wheat alone because it's all over but the shouting. But I got to tell you, This was a surprise to everybody. This time of the year, this particular report very seldom changes anything. But boy, it did. A great week or two of exports. China back in the market buying corn and soybeans, and unknown destinations, which could be them. Also, big numbers in the last week, 10 days. So that got their attention. They increased exports, increased production, a little bit more nervous by the traders that the production figure is going to be more negative than the increased exports. But quite honestly, that's not a good deal, friends, when you take a look at the grand total.
Ag News from the Mid-America Ag Network.
El Dorado Livestock Auction, 2.5 miles east of El Dorado on Highway 54. Proudly serving farmers and ranchers with weekly cattle sales each Thursday at 11 a.m. The order of sale is stock cows and bulls, followed by calves, feeder cattle, then butcher cows and bulls. The goal at El Dorado Livestock Auction is to use an honest, full-value approach that attracts the best buyers and creates a competitive market for our sellers. El Dorado Livestock Auction strives to develop a friendly, personal relationship with each customer and understand their individual business needs. You can see a full list of consignments online at ElDoradoLivestock.com or pick up the phone and call 316-320-3212 with any questions. El Dorado Livestock Auction, a sale every Thursday at 11 a.m. El Dorado Livestock Auction, 2.5 miles east of El Dorado on Highway 54.
Hey, it's Andy Hoosier with the Voice of Reason. You know, your favorite talk radio show where we weed through the fake news of the day. We talk about important issues and bring some sarcasm, fun, witty, and original perspectives to constitutional discussions. Plus, we talk to some of the most unique and entertaining guests. Yeah, that show. Join me weeknights right here on the 5-State Big Talker and enjoy the most energetic, fast-paced, intense hour of conservatism on the radio. It's the Voice of Reason. It's weeknights at 8 p.m. and it's right here on your 5-State Big Talker, 1210 a.m. and 106.3 FM KGYN.
Save time with the Smart Hub app from TCEC because life shouldn't have to stop when your bills are due. Get the Smart Hub app today and set up reoccurring automatic payments so you can get back to what's most important. It's smart, simple, and easy. Learn how to save time today at tcec.coop/pay.
Your Tri-County Electric Cooperative. Call them at 580-652-2418 or online at tcec.coop. Weather on KGYN brought to you by the Tri-County Electric Cooperative, proudly serving the Panhandle area since 1945. Find out more information at tcec.coop. Tri-County Electric, a Touchtone Energy and National Rural Electric Cooperative.
Here's the latest forecast on the Big Talker, 1210 and 106.3 KGYN. For this morning, a clear sky, sunshine today, not as warm, the high temperature is 68. It'll be partly cloudy and chillier tonight, the low 34. An even cooler day Thursday, partly sunny, high 54. Friday, sunshine with temperatures rebounding to 62. Sunny Veterans Day. I'm meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and that's your forecast of the 5-State Big Talker. 1210 AM and 106.3 FM, KGYN.
At 7:35, it's currently 37 degrees.
I'm Marky Billson, and joining me on the line from, I presume, Oklahoma City is the governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, and recently has proposed legislation to approve sports gambling in the state of Oklahoma. Governor, I want to thank you and welcome you to the 5-State Sunrise here. But let's go right into this bill. You've recently proposed this. I know sports gambling in the casinos and also on the apps and online has been talked about a lot in Oklahoma. We're one of only 15 states, I think, that do not have it, or sports gambling legalized in some fashion. How much revenue do you feel will be brought in if and when sports gambling is approved in Oklahoma?
Well, thanks for having me on. It's good to talk to everybody out in western Oklahoma. And, yeah, you know, it'll be between 50 million, maybe north of that, depending on, you know, the uptake of it. But you're right. There's 35 other states that have this. And so with my plan, I studied kind of what was best practices in these other states, and just kind of rolled that out and said, "Hey, legislature, if we're gonna do it, let's make sure it's transparent and we maximize the revenue for education for the state of Oklahoma." So that's kind of what we did. We think it's a really good plan, and nobody's forced to do it, but if you're going to do it, here's the best opportunity.
So the revenue is primarily going to go to education. What aspects would the supposed $50 million in education, what specifically might that go to in that field?
Well, the legislature appropriates where the money's going to go, but
Okay.
that's where the other casino revenue is gone, and also the other forms. So they can determine exactly how to do it, and then it's usually there's a equalization formula in education, so it goes into the legislature's pot, and then they appropriate that equally across all the different school districts across the state of Oklahoma.
Well, thank you for telling us about the legislature and that they would be the ones that would say where the money went to. But I know that you've received some criticism of the way that the bill has been introduced. Evidently, from what I have read, you did not consult the tribes that control gaming in Oklahoma. I know there's been some friction between you and some of the tribes and all this, but why not use this as maybe a way to extend an olive branch? And before introducing the bill, talk to some of the parties that control gambling in Oklahoma.
Well, number one, we absolutely did, but we're the state of Oklahoma, and so it's up to the legislature how they roll it out. So special interest groups, they obviously want a special deal for themselves, and I want to make sure it's fair for all Oklahomans. But the way our plan works is we have about 130 casinos in Oklahoma, and we're authorizing gaming in those casinos in like a retail fashion. So if you walk into a casino, you absolutely are going to have the ability to game or to do sports betting, place bets on sporting events inside the casino. That's called a retail. And we're going to do a 15% fee for that, which is about what it is in other states. But the mobile statewide gaming, that's a separate license, and we wanted that open to whoever wants to operate it. So we weren't going to set up a monopoly just for the big tribal governments. We wanted that to be transparent. Now, can they apply for a statewide mobile license? 100%. If they want to operate a statewide mobile license like everybody else, they can do it. But also, we didn't want to preclude FanDuel and DraftKings and maybe the Thunder and all the different businesses. So if you want to be able to operate a statewide mobile sports book, you're just going to be able to apply for it, and it's a 20% fee back to the state. And so that's what I'm proposing. So two different licenses, one in the casinos and then one statewide mobile, different license for a statewide mobile betting.
It's $500,000, I think, is your proposal to get the license for, say, an app or the online gaming. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, some states charge more, some states charge less. And our fee is 20%, so it's a $500,000. I think it's a $100,000 annual renewal. And again, it's open to anybody. It's a free market system, and then 20% is the revenue that the state would get. For example, New York gets 50% revenue from their statewide mobile, and so anything less than 20%, I don't think would be fair for the citizens of Oklahoma.
Governor Stitt, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on how likely it was for this to be passed. A lot of reading I've done online say there's some skepticism because there is seeming to be a little bit of friction between you and the tribes and all this. But is this the time where this can actually come through and be passed?
Well, it's totally up to the legislature, but of course, tribal governments are going to have their lobbyists saying it's not good for them because they want a monopoly. They don't want to compete with the DraftKings, the FanDuels.
Sure.
But that's not my job. My job is to have a transparent system. And anytime you start excluding certain businesses from participating in a free market system, that's where there's some hokey pokey going on. So I think Oklahomans are smart enough to know that there's not a fairer system than allow everybody to participate and not exclude it just for one group of people. So that's why I set it up that way, and I think it's fair. And again, if tribal governments want to operate sports mobile betting, they can do it. They just have to play by the same rules that everybody else does in a commercial setting.
Well, I thank you for coming on the airways, but before I let you go, I want to say, I'm new to Oklahoma, and I've been taking sort of a crash course on Oklahoma politics, and I did see where last year you put an executive order out for a freedom of choice on whether or not teachers would like to join a teachers union. And I've been reading a lot about just what that meant, or teachers unions in Oklahoma and certainly throughout the country. I just wanted to ask you what you think the role of labor unions is in 2023 as governor of Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, we're a right-to-work state. Back in the late 90s, early 2000, we put right to work in our Constitution, and what that means is you're free to join a union, but you're also free not to join a union. Some states, if there's a union workforce, you're forced to join that union, and we just think that's bad for business. That's bad for individual freedom. So we're a right-to-work state. You can join a union or you cannot join a union. So what was happening is, in some of our teachers unions, they were being forced, and it making it very difficult for a teacher to opt out. When they first became a teacher back in the, when they first got out of college, they were joined, and it was an auto deducted out of their paycheck. And the U.S. Supreme Court said that you have to opt in every year, just like a benefit. So if you're going to, do health insurance every year, every employer in the state is going to be meeting with their employees, and you're deciding what benefits and what payroll deductions you want to come out of your paycheck. So that's all we're saying is, hey, we want the teachers to have that same right, and every single year they can decide if they want to be in the union or not to be in the union. Are there benefits to them staying in that union and having a payroll deduction automatically come out of their paycheck? And in my opinion, I've given teachers, we've got to have the best teachers in our state, and that's why I gave them a huge pay raise last year. I gave them one again when I first came into office. We want to be the most pro-education state in the country, but really the union doesn't get them any more money. And so that was the only thing, is we had a lot of teachers just saying, hey, it's hard for us to unplug from the unions, and you need to have our back on it, and we certainly do.
He's the governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, joining us on the Big Five State Sunrise. I want to thank you for your time and talking to us about the gaming issue, as well as unions in the country, in the state and the country. We'll be back with the general manager of the Amarillo Sod Poodles after this.
Big tech may control what you social media, but they'll never control me. You'll get the truth from me. It's Dan Bongino. I've done a lot of things in my life, but my calling is right here with you. We're not immune to the facts on my show. We stand against the cabal of elites. Don't believe the liberals are in it for you. They're not. They're in it for themselves and big government. We'll tell you how it really is. Remember, it's the Dan Bongino Show.
Live middays on the 5-state Big Talker KGYN.
A powerful threat calls for a greater response.
When there's a battle, bring strength.
When there's a problem, seek answers.
When there is doubt, give hope.
Not tomorrow.
Not in a few years.
But right now.
Some battles must be faced together. Cancer fighters stand up to cancer every day. And you can be part of this battle too.
Visit standuptocancer.org/American Airlines to learn more.
Together, we can save lives.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit hud.gov/fairhousing. That's hud.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669 9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
St. Jude exceeds any expectation or any dream I could have ever had about a hospital. First was getting David here to save his life. But then I was told we wouldn't get a bill. I didn't quite process that. How's this possible? It's possible through all the wonderful people who donate.
It's pretty amazing when you consider that 7 years ago, we didn't have the treatments we have now. We cure 80% of children with cancer. If you think about that, I mean, go back 50 years, we were curing 20 to 30%. This is the miracle story of modern medicine.
The research here is research that we share with everyone else because overall we want to help all children that have cancer. What makes that possible is people that give to St. Jude. They really help us to fulfill our mission, and we're so grateful to have them on our team.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
This is the sound of giraffes under consideration to be listed on the endangered species list for the very first time. This is the sound of wild populations plummeting by nearly 40% over the last 30 years. This is the sound of a silent extinction. Help giraffes break the silence by joining San Diego Zoo Global Wildlife Conservancy at endextinction.org and be heard for the herd.
We are back, and I have to express some dismay as a couple of calls to Tony Enzer, the president of the Amarillo Sod Poodles. No answer. So I don't know exactly what to tell you here about that. I am going to be then carrying on the final segment of the program by myself, and I need to, well, let's go look at some idiotic wimp radio. You heard me. And we'll try to see if we can't reschedule that with the Sod Poodles. But here we go. This is a part of the program where a lot of times you'll have radio shows, and what they'll do is that they read off lists. It's total filler. And it's, the celebrity birthdays. And we can do that. And I can tell you that it's RuPaul's birthday, 63 years old. Wow, and all that. And we go down the two birthdays that really intrigue me, maybe three. Lorne Michaels, producer, Saturday Night Live, 79. Danny DeVito, also 79. Born on the same day as Lorne Michaels. There you go. All right. Yes, Louis De Palma rules. Okay, and patterned my entire life after Louis De Palma. Danny DeVito, 79. But the uber beautiful Daisy Fuentes, a crush of my youth when she was an MTV VJ. She's 57 years old. And I met Daisy Fuentes. I used to watch. I have no interest. This is so totally against anything that I would ever do. America's Funniest Home Videos. She used to be a host of America's Funniest Home Videos. That is so not me to watch. Not that I don't have a sense of humor, but I mean, just, oh, look, wacky chainsaw accident. Let's put it on ABC. No, I don't like that. I'm sorry. He falls down the stairs. Look, wow. But Daisy Fuentes used to host that. And I used to watch just to get a glimpse of Daisy Fuentes. He was a younger man, all this sort of stuff. Back in the day when she was the host of America's Funniest Home Videos. I used to also watch MTV a lot when she was on, and that was when I was caring more about the Headbangers Ball, and still do, than what the videos Daisy Fuentes was playing. But yes, seeing Daisy Fuentes as an MTV VJ and saying, it's Daisy time, and all, that always did it for me. Guymon, I remember you'll see why I said Guymon if you know I don't want to give free advertising out, but I will say I do remember ads that she did for an electronics company that we still have a affiliate of in Guymon, but she used to do this with Alex Rodriguez, these advertisements. and such. So Daisy Fuentes, who is, we'd like to have her on the show in person if we could possibly. Let's see here. We all just talked to Governor Kevin Stitt about the gaming and, his idea about, look, I don't want to have a monopoly on sports gambling in the state of Oklahoma, his viewpoint. 20 years ago today, Arnold Schwarzenegger was inaugurated as governor of California. That might be the last Republican governor California will have. That could possibly be the case. We mentioned earlier on the show in a past episode of it about this man, the QAnon shaman. I can never QAnon. I'm sorry. Here we QAnon shaman Jacob Chansley. You remember he was the guy with the horns and the red, white, and blue face paint, and was carrying a flag into the Capitol on January 6th and such. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison by a federal court for doing that. His name is Jacob Chansley, and he's now running for Congress in suburban Phoenix. We mentioned that earlier on the program. Interesting. That's a lot. I mean, you go from, being sentenced to prison for 3 years to obviously getting your sentence commuted, obviously, and now running for Congress. Jacob Chansley has had a wild 3 years. 2004, here we go. Kmart announced it was buying Sears and Roebuck for $11 billion. How'd that work out for you? There are still, I think, 3 Kmarts left in the United States. It's still big in the Virgin Islands. There are like 4 Kmarts in the Virgin Islands. There's a YouTube video of one of the remaining Kmarts in the country that is located in Miami, Florida. And I may have mentioned this before. It is basically now operating kind of like what you might see in a Walgreens or a CVS, something like that. I mean, a lot of, everyday laundry detergent, soap, that's, the everyday items, Kleenex, these sort of things that they have, that they're selling at the Miami Kmart, not, the competitor to Walmart that they once were. And then they said that it's been, drastically downsized store out there in Miami and such. And basically, just sort of hanging on by probably selling what inventory it has, and also maybe being for that area of Miami. I mean, you need places that sell, detergent and candy bars and, things like that, but it operates almost like a drugstore without a pharmacy, as I recall, one of the remaining 3 Kmarts going on. It is, as I said, they still have them in the Virgin Islands. And one of the things that really hurts is when you're talking about and how these big companies just sort of dry up. It's shipping. Now, my goodness, I mean, if you're in Guymon and you're in the area, you see all the tractor trailers going through town, or through the Panhandle or the 5-state region and such. But yeah, it costs a lot of money to ship, goods from, if one store is in Long Island and the other store is in Miami, that's difficult to really pay for. But if they're all centrally located there in the Virgin Islands, it's a different story. Well, Kmart's still existing. There's still a few Sears around too. There's one in Pennington Gap, Virginia. Why I would know that, well, that's another story entirely. But yeah, beautiful women going on. Linda Evans tomorrow is 81. Remember her from Dynasty, and yeah, I remember also a lot of Johnny Carson jokes about how much he liked Linda Evans and such. So back in the day, so looking at the beautiful women who were born on this day. And then on Sunday, Meg Ryan turned 62 and Jodie Foster turned 61. Boy, that is Jodie Foster turning 61. And if you're a fan of the movie Taxi Driver, and you will remember Jodie Foster as just, a woman in a position that she was way too young for in that movie, to put it nicely. And it was 12 to 13 years old then back in 1976, and now 61 degrees, Jodie Foster. 61 degrees, listen to me, 61 years old, excuse me. Radio thing. You've always got to give the weather here now. And I should tell you that here in the big 5-state area, we've gained a degree today. So 36 degrees here on KGYN. Let's see here. Want to also remind you that this weekend and tomorrow you can be hearing all the football, well, not all of the football games, but a wonderful host of ball games, as at 10:30 in the morning we'll have the pregame of Touchdown Radio before the Michigan Wolverines, who are, I believe, ranked number 2 in the country, take on the Maryland Terrapins in a game that has much college football playoff implications. And then Oklahoma State, 23rd ranked team in the nation, they take on Houston. Of course, we're on the Cowboys Sports Network. You'll be able to hear that game, the pregame, beginning at 3 p.m. on Sunday. Tune in at 6:30 Central Time in Colorado and New Mexico. That would be 5:30. But at 6:30 Central Time, you'll be able to hear the red-hot Minnesota Vikings taking on the equally and now suddenly surprising Denver Broncos, winners of their last 2 games against the Chiefs, ended their 16-game losing streak against Kansas City. And then they beat on Monday Night Football, they beat the Bills last Monday. And you heard it here on KGYN. Now you'll be able to listen to the talents of Jordan Addison catching passes from Josh Dobbs with the Minnesota Vikings. That game on Sunday, kicking off a little after 7, but you'll be able to hear the pregame here on KGYN at 6:30. So some pretty good football games that you will be able to hear here on the radio station coming up. But I am Marky Billson, looking forward, and I want to just thank also the governor, Kevin Stitt, and talking about his new gaming bill and saying, I don't think that the apps, there should be a monopoly. Can we really have and exclude the DraftKings and, the BetMGMs of the world from conducting business in Oklahoma? Interesting take. The other thing that I would mention is we mentioned how on January 9th in Texas County, there will be a special election on raising the sales tax from its current 0.45, 45ths, is that not 45% of a penny? 45%, or a 0.45 sales tax to a 1%, to try to get the hospital out of debt and improve its infrastructure, get better equipment, that sort of thing, among other things. We'll be following that story here on the 5-State Sunrise in the coming weeks before the ballot comes up on January 9th. The tax would be in effect for 20 years beginning on April Fool's Day. Folks, I'm Marky Billson. Glenn Beck is next. Thank you for listening.
The 5 States Big Talker, K2HG Liberal, KGYN Guymon Liberal, 1210. GYN, a Steckline Communications station.